The freezer was humming again. It always does that before it dies. That's how I noticed the envelope. It wasn't there the night before. Just sitting on top of a frozen bag of peas I hadn't used in 2 years, with my name scribbled in thick black Sharpie. Not honey or Kurt, just 5 crooked letters like she'd written them while standing up, halfway out the door. And beneath the hum, I swear, I could still smell her perfume. Expensive, sharp, like citrus and distance. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it for maybe an hour, arms crossed, just letting the cold air leak out onto my slippers. It felt like a dare. Like if I opened it, things would become irreversible. That envelope would become the border between before and after. And I was still pretending that the before could be glued back together. But I opened it. And inside, 3 things. A bus ticket stub, dated yesterday. A post-it note that said, "I'll explain when I can. Please feed Oliver." And a withdrawal receipt for $64,237.78 from Elliot's college fund. My knees didn't buckle. That would have been too cinematic. Instead, I sat down on the tile and started laughing. Like the empty, cracking laugh you do when you stub your toe and then someone calls you a loser in the same moment. It didn't feel real, but it was. The college fund. Every penny. Gone. She did it. Celeste actually did it. For months, she kept asking questions that I thought were just idle curiosity. What's the interest rate again? Or, is there a way to access it faster in an emergency? I answered everything. I always do. I thought we were a team. Now I'm sitting on cold tile, holding a slip of paper that proves she emptied the future of the only person in the world who still believes I can do something right. And the worst part? Our son was still asleep upstairs, in a Star Wars shirt, with a crayon drawing on the wall next to his bed that says me and Mom and Dad and our dog Oliver. Now it's just me and Oliver, and a freezer that won't shut all the way. I stayed there until the sun came up. I didn't even cry. I just stared at the receipt like maybe it would evaporate, like the numbers would rearrange themselves into a joke. But they didn't. At 7:06 a.m., I heard footsteps. Small ones. Elliot. He padded into the kitchen like nothing had changed. Like it was just a regular morning, and he was about to ask for cereal with chocolate chips in it. Instead, he walked past me, opened the junk drawer, pulled out a manila envelope, and set it next to the one I was still clutching. "Don't freak out," he said. Then he leaned down and whispered, "I fixed it." And before I could say a word, he walked out of the kitchen and went back upstairs, just like that. I looked down at the second envelope. It was thicker, heavier, and when I opened it, what I saw inside made the hair on my arms stand straight up. There are moments in life that don't make sense until long after they've ended. You look back and go, oh, that's where everything tilted. But this moment, sitting in the kitchen, 2 envelopes in front of me, one from my wife, one from my 10-year-old son. This moment didn't wait to feel strange. It already did. It felt like a trap, like I wasn't supposed to open it, like whatever was inside would rewrite something I couldn't undo. But of course, I opened it, because curiosity is cruel. The first thing I saw inside was cash. A lot of it. Thick, rubber-banded stacks. My brain couldn't catch up. I thought maybe he'd found it in the walls or dug it up in the yard. My first thought wasn't even joy. It was suspicion. Panic. Like I'd just become an accomplice to something without even moving. Under the cash, there was a folded-up piece of notebook paper. Sloppy handwriting. Misspellings. But unmistakably Elliot's. It read, "Dad, I know Mom took your money. I saw the password she typed when she opened your laptop. I watched her face when she said we were just going for a trip. So I did something." I stopped reading and sat back. My chest was tight. My face was cold. Something about this whole thing felt off. Like I was in a dream and couldn't trust the way gravity worked anymore. I forced myself to finish the note. When she was in the bathroom, I took her phone and looked up where the money went. I found her emails. She sent money to a man named Grant. I copied the stuff, but I also sent him a message from her number and said something he didn't like. He got mad and said he wanted his money back now. Then he said he was coming. That night, I hid in the laundry cart at the hotel and ran out the back. I took the money from her bag while she was asleep. At that point, I dropped the paper. I didn't want to read the rest. I couldn't. I looked up the stairs where Elliot had disappeared like nothing happened, probably brushing his teeth or fixing his hair for school. I didn't know whether to run up there and hug him or shake him or ask him 1,000 questions that I didn't even know how to form yet. He was 10. And he'd just stolen back $64,000 from the woman who brought him into this world. And her friend, or accomplice, or whatever Grant was. I took out my phone, hands shaking. I checked my emails. I checked hers, the ones I still had access to. Sure enough, I found the transfer receipts, multiple transfers. She hadn't just taken the college fund. She'd split it up into pieces, sent some to that prepaid card, and most of it to this Grant guy's account. I also saw something else. A reservation. An Airbnb in Sedona, Arizona. Booked for 2 guests. 1 child. I felt sick. I don't know how long I sat there, just staring at the screen. The hum of the freezer, the sound of the clock, the occasional thud of Elliot moving around upstairs. I felt like I was falling down a well, but somehow still seated in my own kitchen. I wanted to believe she was confused, or scared, or being manipulated. But the truth was, she planned this. She'd been planning it. While I was folding laundry and making mac and cheese. While I was going to work early to get overtime. While I was kissing her goodnight and thinking she was just tired. That was the part that wrecked me the most. Not the theft. Not even the betrayal. But the pretending. Pretending that we were still okay. And while I was busy pretending I could fix whatever was broken, my son had already decided to fix it his way. I picked up the envelope again. Shuffled through the cash. There were 4 bundles. Each marked $5,000 in shaky Sharpa letters. He must have counted it out himself. There was also a flash drive taped to the bottom. Just before I could plug it in, the doorbell rang. I flinched so hard I nearly knocked over my chair. It was 7:39 a.m. No one ever rings our doorbell before noon. I stood frozen, unsure whether to answer. My first thought, it's her. She came back. Then my mind shifted. What if it was Grant? And if it was, what did he want? I didn't move at first. Just sat there gripping the flash drive like it was a grenade. The doorbell rang again twice, fast, then once more, slow. Like whoever was out there wasn't just stopping by. They knew I was home. I leaned forward, peeked through the frosted glass pane by the door, but the rain made it impossible to see anything clearly, just the vague outline of someone tall, standing still, hands in their pockets. I wanted to run upstairs and lock the bedroom door. I know that sounds pathetic, but I've never been the confrontational type. I hate yelling. I once got into a conflict at work because someone took my yogurt from the office fridge, and instead of confronting them, I bought a mini fridge and kept it under my desk. But this wasn't yogurt. This was 64 grand, a runaway wife, and a son who might have just put a target on our backs. So yeah, I panicked. I took a breath and opened the door anyway, half an inch, just enough to wedge my eye into the gap. He wasn't what I expected. The man standing on my porch wasn't some tattooed thug or crazed con artist. He looked clean, normal, maybe 45, a leather jacket zipped halfway up, dark hair combed back, sunglasses in his collar despite the rain. But his face, it was hard in that subtle way some people wear like armor. Not aggressive, just carved. Like a statue that never learned how to smile. "Curtis," he asked. My heart skipped. He knew my name. I hadn't said a word. I hadn't opened the door far enough for him to see my face. "Who's asking?" I croaked, my voice barely louder than a whisper. He didn't flinch. "I think you know. And I think we should talk before this gets messier than it already is." I slammed the door shut out of pure instinct and deadbolted, backing away like the wood was going to vanish. He didn't pound. He didn't yell. Just waited. After a full minute, he spoke again, through the door, calm as a librarian. "Look, I'm not here to hurt anyone. But the woman you live with, Celeste, she took something from me. And I'm going to get it back. You understand me?" I stayed silent, barely breathing. She made promises. Promises that were backed with real money. That money disappeared. And now I'm out of both. He paused. "So if you want to keep that kid of yours safe, I suggest you cooperate. Don't make this harder." My stomach churned. How did he know I had a kid? I hadn't said his name. Had she told him everything? Were they even planning to take Elliot long-term, or was he part of the collateral damage? Then quiet again. Moments passed. I dared to peek through the side window. He was gone. No car. No sound. Just the rain. I backed away and locked every door and window in the house, every one of them. Elliot was still upstairs. I didn't know how much of that he'd heard. But as I turned back to the kitchen, I saw him halfway down the stairs. Barefoot. Holding the dog. "Was that him?" he asked, not even pretending to play dumb. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think it was." He didn't look scared. Not even a little. If anything, he looked like he'd been waiting for it. And that scared me more than anything else. We went back into the kitchen. I unplugged the flash drive from the envelope and stuck it into my laptop, all while Elliot sat at the counter swinging his feet like it was just another Saturday morning cartoon session. I opened the folder. Dozens of files. Screenshots. Email threads. Voicemails. Text logs. Recordings. Password spreadsheets. Dates. Names. It hit me like a punch to the face. My son hadn't just stolen the money back. He'd been watching. For months. Quietly. Carefully. He hadn't just panicked when she left, he prepared. Elliot, I said slowly, not taking my eyes off the screen. What exactly did you do? He shrugged. I watched her. You didn't. And that cut deeper than anything else. He was right. I hadn't watched her. I'd been walking around this house like everything was fine, while she was draining us dry and texting someone behind my back. Elliot, the kid I used to carry on my shoulders to the park, had been spying on his own mom because he didn't trust her, and I hadn't even seen the signs. I opened one of the files. It was a voice memo. From Celeste's phone. Recorded 2 weeks ago. Her voice. He's clueless. Still paying off the van. Still socking money into that college fund like it means anything. Honestly, Grant, I don't even feel bad anymore. The kid's smart, he'll land on his feet. And Curtis? Please. He wouldn't notice if I painted the walls black. Then laughter. Not hers. His. Grant. I closed the laptop. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just sad. I was furious. She had laughed at me. She'd used my name like a joke. And worse, she treated our son like a side effect. Like an afterthought she could leave in a hotel while she ran off with some guy named Grant. And now Grant was circling. I looked at Elliot. You sure he doesn't know where you went? Elliot nodded. I left her phone in the laundry room of the hotel. I smashed it after I sent that message. I used the emergency stairs and walked a mile before I got into Mr. Patel's cab. Mr. Patel, the man who ran the corner deli. He knew us. He'd driven Elliot home? I was stunned into silence. My son had crafted an escape plan. At 10, I couldn't decide if I was proud or terrified. But one thing was clear. Grant wasn't done. And neither was Celeste. I had $64,000 in stolen cash, a digital folder full of secrets, and a kid who'd somehow become the only adult in the house. And outside? Somewhere in the rain? Grant was watching. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every creak in the house sounded like a boot on the stairs. Every gust of wind brushing the window made me flinch. I kept the living room lamp on until sunrise like that was somehow going to protect us. Elliot slept on the couch, curled up next to the dog with the manila envelope still under his arm, like he didn't trust even me to hold it while he rested. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. If the roles were reversed, I wouldn't trust me either. I'd been blind to everything. To Celeste's distance. To her late-night calls. To the way she'd smile when she read her phone, then look up at me like I was a pothole in her day. And now, here I was, hiding inside my own house while a stranger watched from the shadows and my son acted like he was the only adult left standing. When the sun rose, I made coffee and nearly dropped the mug when I noticed the kitchen window was unlocked. Unlocked. After all that. After bolting every door and checking the garage 3 times, I had left the kitchen window open all night. I locked it quietly, like sealing a confession, then peeked through the blinds. The street was still. No cars. No movement. But that didn't mean anything. Grant could be watching from anywhere. He didn't need to stand out front with a newspaper under his arm. People like him didn't get their hands dirty unless they had to. I knew enough from the emails Elliot uncovered to know Grant wasn't some amateur. He had at least 3 aliases in her contact list. One was saved as Dr. Greg, another as Realtor Tom. She had labeled him like he was a business contact. Just another mask to switch out. I sat Elliot down that morning, tried to ask him the obvious. How long have you known? He didn't look up from his cereal. Since Christmas. Christmas. That meant she'd been planning this for nearly 6 months. 6 months of lying. Smiling across the dinner table. Pretending to wrap gifts for Elliot while funneling money to a man who told her he'd give her a clean exit. I wanted to ask how much Elliot had seen, how much he'd heard, but I already knew it was too much. I saw it in his eyes. He didn't just feel abandoned. He felt recruited. Like his mother had made him a sidekick in her escape plan, only for him to flip the script and run the other way. While Elliot was watching cartoons like nothing happened, I finally plugged in the flash drive again and started listening to the rest of the voice memos. Most were muffled. Background recordings. Him and her arguing about timing. About bank routing numbers. About me. I fast-forwarded until I heard something that made my spine freeze. Celeste, he still thinks I'm going to help him refinance the house. That poor idiot. Once I get Elliot out of school, we go straight to Flagstaff. You get the documents printed. Grant, yeah, I already opened a new account in your maiden name. After we move, he'll have nothing. You'll get the divorce papers in the mail. He can cry about it in his pajamas. I paused the audio and just sat there, stunned. Not because she planned to leave me. No, I'd already swallowed that poison, but because she was going to cut me out of Elliot's life completely. She wasn't trying to co-parent. She was erasing me, like I was some old receipt she didn't need anymore. That's when I heard the knock on the back window. Not the front door. Not the porch. The back window, the one just above the basement stairs. The one you don't hear unless someone's trying to be subtle. I jumped up, heart already slamming against my ribs. Elliot looked up from the TV. The dog started barking. I motioned for him to stay quiet and crept toward the back hallway, unsure what I was even going to do if someone was there. Fight them off with a broom? But when I looked through the blinds, no one. Just wet footprints on the back steps. Size 11, maybe 12. Not mine. And something else. Wedged into the window frame, half torn by the wind, was a photograph. A printed photo of me and Elliot, sitting on the front porch 2 summers ago, eating popsicles. I remembered that day. It was hot, and he'd just spilled red juice down his shirt. Celeste took the picture. She laughed at how serious we both looked. On the back of the photo, someone had written in red marker, "You weren't supposed to keep him." I swear the floor swayed beneath me. I didn't show Elliot the photo. I couldn't. Not yet. I told him it was nothing, just someone messing around. But I knew what it meant. Grant wasn't just angry. He was warning me, marking his territory. Elliot was part of the plan, and I disrupted it. That night, I didn't let Elliot sleep downstairs. I moved us both into the master bedroom. I barricaded the front door with furniture. I charged every phone. I kept the dog next to the bed. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew we had a clock ticking. And the worst part? I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Because if I did, I'd have to explain how I got the money back. How a 10-year-old broke into his mom's digital accounts. How I'd accepted stolen funds from a woman who hadn't technically broken a single custody law. I was a father. A tired, heartbroken, spineless father. And now I was an accomplice in something much bigger than I'd ever signed up for. As I lay there, pretending to sleep, Elliot whispered from the other side of the bed. "Dad, if he comes back, we don't run, okay? I have a plan." And I didn't say a word, because I believed him. And that scared me more than anything else. The next morning didn't feel like morning. It felt like a warning. The kind where your body wakes up before your mind does, already tense, already coiled like it knows something's wrong even before your eyes open. I reached across the bed, thinking for a second that I'd feel the warm spot where Elliot had been curled up with the dog, but the blankets were cold. Gone. The room was quiet. Too quiet. I flew out of bed like something had bitten me. "Elliot," I called, my voice cracking more than I'd like to admit. "Buddy." No answer. I nearly tripped over the dog as I bolted down the stairs, calling his name louder now, past the living room, the hallway, the kitchen. The front door was locked. The back door still barricaded. No broken windows. No footprints. No sign of forced entry. And then I saw it. On the kitchen table, my phone. Next to it, a different phone. One I didn't recognize. Old. Beat up. The kind you buy at a gas station and never register under your name. A burner. It was lit up. A text message was already on the screen. "You still have time to do this clean. Bring the boy to the location. No cops. No tricks. Or the next photo won't be from 2 years ago." I read it 3 times before the words started to make sense. Bring the boy. Bring. Not return. Not talk. Not even meet. Bring. This wasn't about custody. This wasn't about money anymore. This was leverage. My hand shook as I unlocked the phone to see if there were more messages, and that's when I noticed something even worse. A video file. Timestamped at 4:26 a.m. Just a few hours earlier. My fingers hovered above the screen like touching it would set off an explosion, but I tapped it anyway. The video opened with the sound of wind. A parking lot, empty and dark. A man's shadow pacing slowly between lampposts. Then the frame tilted, and I saw her. Celeste. Sitting on a curb in a hoodie, arms crossed, looking up at whoever was holding the camera. She didn't look scared. Just tired. Cold. Maybe angry. Then the voice behind the camera, Grant, I'm assuming, spoke. "He doesn't get to keep him." That wasn't the deal. Celeste didn't reply at first. She just rubbed her face and looked away, then finally muttered, "I didn't think he'd fight back." He never fights back. The camera turned off before the conversation could go further. And I stood there, frozen, holding a burner phone like it had just handed me a death sentence. I was shaking, not just in my hands, everywhere. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was rage, regret, and confusion. Why Elliot? Why not just take the money and go? I was still piecing things together when I heard the creak of the stairs. I turned to see Elliot at the top, still in his pajama pants, holding something out in his hand. A USB stick. "I found another one in her jewelry box," he said. "You should see it." I asked him where he'd been. He said he'd gone upstairs early to feed the dog and look for more clues. No fear in his voice. No trembling. Just that same eerie calm he'd had since the moment she left. I took the USB like it was made of glass and plugged it into my laptop. This one wasn't folders. It was a single recording. Security camera footage. Hotel lobby. Celeste walking in with Elliot. Grant following a few steps behind, sunglasses on even at night, hand on Elliot's shoulder for just a second too long. They're smiling, but it's wrong. Too stiff. Too practiced. Elliot looks directly into the camera once, just once, like he knew someone might see this later. I closed the laptop. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed gravel. This wasn't just a woman running off with a boyfriend and some money. This was something bigger, more coordinated. It had layers I didn't even understand yet. Why the burner phone? Why the footage? Why give me these pieces if they didn't want me involved? Unless they did want me involved. Just enough to blame. Just enough to make me look complicit. I told Elliot we needed to get out of the house. Just for a bit. Clear our heads. I packed a small bag with essentials, flash drives, the cash, documents, stuff I could grab fast. We left through the side garage and drove in silence for half an hour before I realized I had no destination. Just motion. Just escape. Eventually, I pulled into a gas station and parked behind the building. I told Elliot to stay in the car, and I walked around the lot, checking every corner like I was someone who actually knew what he was doing. I didn't. I was a guy who once got lost in a grocery store because they rearranged the produce section. But I was trying. When I came back, Elliot was holding the burner phone. The screen was lit up again. Another text had come in. "You have 48 hours. Then we find you." There was no number. No reply option. No metadata. Just the message. And my reflection in the glass, looking more and more like a man on borrowed time. I didn't want to go back home. I knew it wasn't safe. I knew staying in motion was smarter. But something was gnawing at the back of my head the whole time we drove. Something about that photo Grant had left wedged in the window. The one of me and Elliot. That image, printed and marked like a message, was too personal. Too deliberate. Like it wasn't meant just to scare me. Like it was meant to remind me of something. I couldn't stop replaying it in my mind, our faces, the angle, the background, and that's when I realized something strange. The porch in that photo wasn't our porch. It looked like it, sure. Same white railing, same cracked brick step. But the flower pots were different. The mailbox had a silver hinge instead of black, and the tree behind us was too small. At first, I thought maybe it had been edited or pulled from a social feed, but the more I looked at it on my phone, the more something clicked. That wasn't a photo taken of us. It was staged. Recreated. I pulled the car over on a quiet residential street and sat there for a long moment while Elliot nibbled on a pack of dry trail mix from the gas station. I showed him the photo again and asked, "Does anything seem wrong about this?" He squinted at it, leaned back, then tilted his head. "That's not our porch." I stared at him. "How do you know?" He shrugged. "The porch swing in the background. We never had one. I always wanted one." He was right. And then came the bigger question. Why would someone stage a photo of us? I had no answer. We drove back to the house in silence, the kind that felt like glass, tense, ready to shatter. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest on foot, cutting through backyards and alleyways like we were in some low-budget spy film. I didn't see anyone watching, but I didn't trust my instincts anymore. I had ignored too much already. The house looked untouched. No signs of forced entry. No new notes or footprints. But I still felt watched. I sent Elliot inside and told him to go pack a few more things. Just the essentials. While he was gone, I sat down in the garage on a stool next to the old toolbox I hadn't touched in months. I was trying to think, trying to force the puzzle pieces into place, when I noticed something strange. The old fireproof safe in the back corner was slightly open. Not enough to be obvious. Just enough that someone had unlocked it and maybe forgot to shut it completely. I didn't remember leaving it open. In fact, I hadn't opened that safe in years. We never used it for anything serious, just some old papers, warranty cards, maybe a few photos. I opened the door the rest of the way and saw the contents were mostly undisturbed. But tucked inside a torn envelope was something I had never seen before. A key. Not a house key. Not a car key. It was small, square-ended, engraved with a number, C247B. I held it in my palm and just stared. I knew what it was. A safe deposit box key. But not mine. I'd never rented one in my life. So either Celeste had hidden it here long ago, or someone else had planted it. But when? And why? And how the hell did I not notice it until now? I showed it to Elliot. He didn't recognize it either. But the second he saw the number, his face changed. That blank kid expression flickered into something sharper. That was in her planner, he said. The number. She wrote it in the margin next to a Tuesday a few months ago. I thought it was a gym locker or something. Now I wasn't sure what scared me more, that my wife had a secret deposit box, or that my 10-year-old son had memorized the handwriting from her planner well enough to connect a random 4-digit code to a key he had never seen before. I knew I had to find out what was inside. So I left Elliot with the neighbor, an older woman named Daphne who used to babysit him when he was smaller, and drove straight to the downtown branch of one of the bigger banks. I didn't know exactly which location the box belonged to, but the key had a bank logo engraved faintly on its side, Winton Federal, a place we never used, which already made the whole thing feel worse. When I walked in and asked about box C247B, the clerk gave me a tired smile and asked for identification. I expected her to turn me away, to say I wasn't authorized, but when she looked up my name in the system, she blinked. "You're on the list," she said. "The list. For emergency access," she added. "Secondary party. It was filed 3 months ago." 3 months. That meant Celeste added me. Recently. Quietly. While she was also planning her escape. The vault was cold. Sterile. The kind of place where secrets are supposed to feel safe. When the box was pulled and placed on the metal table, I just stared at it for a while. My hand hovered over the lid, because I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was inside would change something permanently. Like opening it would release something into the world I couldn't take back. But I opened it anyway. Inside was a stack of documents. Some passports. Some cash. And a sealed white envelope. My name was written on it. Just my name. Not to my husband, not sorry. Just Curtis. I opened it. The letter inside was handwritten in Celeste's sharp, elegant cursive. It was dated the day before she disappeared. If you're reading this, then you figured out more than I expected you to. I want to explain everything, but I know you won't believe me. You were always good. You loved me in a way that felt unearned. I loved you too, once, but not the way you think. Not the way you needed. And not enough to keep Elliot safe. Grant is dangerous. I thought I could control him. I thought he needed me more than I needed him. I was wrong. I didn't take the money to run. I took it to pay him off. To buy time. Elliot was supposed to be insurance, but he got smart. He saw through me. He saw everything. If you want to protect him now, you have to stop looking for me. And whatever you do, don't trust the man who comes next. That last line hit me like a hammer. Because I already had. I had trusted the neighbor, the cop who took my report, the man on the porch who said, "I think you know who I am." I had trusted that I understood what kind of story I was in. But I didn't. And now, somewhere out there, a second man was coming. Not Grant. Someone worse. Someone I wouldn't recognize until it was too late. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember the traffic or the weather or even turning the car off when I parked 2 streets away. All I remember is the sound of my own heartbeat echoing inside my ears, louder than the engine, louder than the world. I had the envelope in my jacket pocket. Her handwriting still burned into my mind. Don't trust the man who comes next. That phrase wouldn't stop repeating. It followed me into the house, clinging to me like smoke. Elliot was waiting inside, sitting on the couch with a half-eaten apple and our dog snoring beside him. He looked up the second I walked through the door and asked, "Did you find anything?" I didn't know how to answer. What I found wasn't something you just explain over cereal or cartoons. But I couldn't lie either. Not anymore. So I handed him the envelope. He read it silently, slowly. No questions. No interruptions. His eyes didn't widen. His face didn't change. And when he was done, he folded the letter neatly and said, "I think she was trying to fix it at the last second." It hit me then. The way he said it. Like he understood her better than I did. Like somewhere inside, he'd already forgiven her for everything. The money. The running. Even the manipulation. Maybe because he was still a child, and children have to believe their parents are trying, even when they fail. Or maybe because he knew something else, something I hadn't figured out yet. We didn't sleep that night either. We stayed up in the living room, rotating watch. Every shadow on the wall made my skin itch. Every noise outside made me check the locks again. Around 2 a.m., I heard Elliot whisper from across the room, "What if it's not about us?" I sat up. "What do you mean?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "What if it's not about Mom leaving? Or the money? What if they're using us for something else?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. And that silence scared me more than any answer could have. The next morning, the letter was still clutched in my hand. I barely realized I'd fallen asleep on the floor. Elliot had drifted off next to the dog, curled up in a blanket, the burner phone still glowing dimly near his side like a nightlight made of threats. I got up, moved to the window, and cracked the blinds open just an inch. That's when I saw the car. Not parked on the street. Not idling. Just sitting. Across from the house. A dark blue sedan with no plates. No logos. Tinted windows. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. It never moved. The driver didn't get out. But I knew someone was inside. I could feel it. I grabbed the binoculars from the cabinet above the fridge, a random birthday gift from Celeste years ago when I'd told her I liked birdwatching, even though I'd only said it to make conversation. Through the lens, I could just make out the silhouette of a man. Sunglasses. Ball cap. Motionless. Not Grant. Different build. Thinner. Taller. Still. And that's when the realization hit me. The man who was coming next wasn't coming. He was already here. Watching. Waiting. Studying us like we were part of a slow-moving experiment. I pulled the blinds shut and backed away from the window. I told Elliot to get dressed. We were leaving. Not for an hour. Not in a little while. Now. He didn't argue. He didn't ask where. He just nodded and started gathering things. We had to leave everything behind. The furniture. The toys. The drawings. The photos on the fridge. We took one bag, the burner phone, the flash drives, and the dog. I stuffed the letter from the safe deposit box into my back pocket and told myself I'd come back for the rest. But even then, I didn't believe that. As we pulled out of the alley and looped around behind the neighborhood, I glanced back in the rearview mirror. The blue sedan was gone. Not turned off. Gone. Like it had never been there. That's when I realized something else. Something I hadn't noticed before. The inside of the house had smelled different this morning. Not bad. Just off. A faint scent of cologne. One I didn't recognize. And I don't wear cologne. Someone had been inside. Not recently. Last night. While we were sleeping. While we were taking turns keeping watch. Someone had already walked our floors. Breathed our air. Left no trace. Which meant, whatever this was, it wasn't just personal. It was professional. And we were way out of our depth. We didn't go to a hotel. That was the first thing Elliot said once we were in the car, his voice low but steady. No motels, no credit cards. They'll look there first. He said it like someone who'd been thinking 5 moves ahead for weeks. I don't know when my 10-year-old became someone who could outmaneuver grown adults playing a dangerous game, but somehow he had. I just drove. I didn't ask questions. We ended up at a storage facility an hour outside the city. One of those places that looks abandoned until you open the right unit and find a world inside. Elliot told me to stop at Unit 112. I stared at him in disbelief. How do you know the number? He shrugged. I helped her rent it. A few months ago. She said it was for storing art supplies. It was in her name. The access code worked. When I rolled up the metal door, I expected boxes, maybe a few paintings, forgotten chairs. But instead, what I saw nearly knocked the breath out of me. It was a backup life. A small filing cabinet. A new set of luggage. 2 prepaid phones still in their packaging. Multiple IDs, all fake, but realistic. And a binder labeled Plan B. Inside, instructions. Notebooks. Maps. Contact names. There was even a document assigning temporary guardianship of Elliot to me. Notarized and signed, dated a week before she vanished. She hadn't abandoned him. She protected him. All of it started making a strange, fractured kind of sense. Celeste knew she was in too deep. She'd gotten involved with the wrong man, maybe even been manipulated into it. But somewhere along the line, she realized she wasn't going to be able to save herself and Elliot. So she picked him. Quietly. Carefully. Without letting anyone, not even me, know until it was absolutely necessary. And Elliot? He had read the signs before I ever did. He'd picked up her phone habits, noticed the calls, spotted the inconsistencies. And when he realized I wouldn't act, that I was still stuck believing the best in everyone, he did what I couldn't. He made a decision. He chose to come home. Chose to come back to me. I didn't know how to tell you, he said, sitting on a rolled-up carpet in the corner of the unit, petting the dog. I just kept thinking maybe she'd change her mind. But after a while, I knew I had to choose. And he had. And because of that choice, we were alive. We were free. The money was back. The fake names, the burner phones, the backup escape route, all of it made one thing clear. Whatever trap Celeste had been pulled into, she hadn't gone quietly. She had made sure we had a way out. We didn't go back home. Not then. Instead, I called in a favor from the only person I still trusted, my cousin Raymond, a quiet mechanic in a small mountain town 3 states away. He said we could stay as long as we needed. No questions asked. We drove through the night. Slept in shifts. Ate from gas stations. But with every mile, the fear started to loosen its grip. Every hour that passed without a message, without a tale, without a strange man on the corner, it felt like we were crawling out of something. A week later, Elliot was enrolled in a new school under a temporary name. I got a job helping manage fleet repairs at Ray's garage. The money wasn't great, but it didn't matter. I watched my son laugh again. I watched him play basketball in the driveway and argue about cereal flavors and sleep in a bed without flinching at the shadows. And the best part? Celeste sent one more letter. No return address. Just a folded note tucked inside a legal envelope delivered by courier. I won't come back. I can't. But tell Elliot. I never stopped loving him. And tell you, thank you for being the kind of father I knew he'd need when I couldn't be what he deserved. I cried when I read it. Not out of grief this time, but something closer to peace. She'd been broken. She'd been reckless. But she hadn't been evil. And somewhere in that mess of betrayal and danger and fear, she'd still made the choice that mattered most. She protected our son. And now, Elliot was smiling again. Laughing again. Living again. We don't talk about the money anymore. We donated most of it. What's left is in a new fund, under both our names. This time, it's real. This time, it's safe. The only thing Elliot ever said about the whole ordeal, really said, came one night while we were watching a movie on the couch, the dog curled up between us, and the heater humming softly in the background. He looked up at me, calm and quiet, and whispered, "It's over now, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, buddy. It's over." And this time, I meant it.